I'm talking to Karina Ordonez, a recent CHDS graduate from cohort 403-404. Karina, thanks for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, you were doing some really interesting thesis work, research on borders and immigration. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Most definitely. Basically what my thesis consists of, it's kind of two-phased. One is more the historical background, focusing on the Arizona-Sonora border of the U.S.-Mexico border, which is only a portion, but it's currently the most porous along the border. It represents 43% of the nation's apprehensions take place along that border, which is about 370 miles. And so one part of it is the historical background. How did we get to become the most porous? How did that 43% happen? And the other second part of it is modeling. Through the work of the NPS staff, helped me develop a model, mathematical model, to predict as you apply pressure or security along the border where the flow of immigration will go. And that is in order to help policymakers and decision makers as they implement strategy, from a defense point of view, on the layers of defense, where to implement them to alternate the flows.
Borders and immigration are obviously incredibly politically and culturally sensitive topics, right, and particularly emotional issues for the American public in general. Is there a way you can treat the border problems strictly from a security and strategy perspective, isolating them from the political and the cultural?
I would have to say no. The border is extremely dynamic, and it has its own culture within the United States culture or the Mexican culture. It's developed its own subculture. And so many families are divided because of this geopolitical boundary. Our water resources are shared. Our environment is very much similar. And so there's very strong ties, cultural ties, that we cannot just overlook from a security standpoint. And we must be sensitive to those humanitarian and cultural dimensions.
How do you see the issue of border security vis-a-vis Homeland security playing out over the next, say, 5 years?
I think that it's going to continue being on the forefront, on the platform of politics on Capitol Hill, because there are so many, because it is extremely emotional topic, aside because of the humanitarian values. I think that politicians are going to continue to argue and to debate before we can actually get to a true immigration reform. It's not an easy topic. It's not something that consensus we can build very easily because there are many factors, economic, security, cultural, that have to take into play.
Border security aside, if you were to sort of pan out onto the entire context, the entire Homeland security scene, and identify a few topics, say 3 topics or issues or problems that are really sort of on the horizon or around the corner that the average Homeland Security operator, practitioner, policymaker hasn't necessarily become aware of, what would you say those are?
I think that while there is already law in place for interior enforcement, that if we do not get better at enforcing immigration law within the interior, the problem is going to continue escalating. And with that problem, we're going to see more and more health issues. Resources to our education is going to decrease, available to our individuals. But at the same time, immigration does bring some economic prosperity. And so we just have to be mindful of the needs that we have and have an immigration reform that supports that economic prosperity, and make sure that we allow those that are here to work, that are here actually to pursue the American dream, we give them a viable way, and those that are here for harm's way, to make sure that we enforce, we control, and we prevent them from harming us.
To what extent are border and immigration issues relevant to Americans in the interior of the country, people who don't live in border states?
Extremely, because border states, I see them as a hub. We're just a transportation hub. We're just passed through. But the jobs are in Iowa, in North Carolina. The jobs are not necessarily in Arizona. Arizona is booming, and the economy has been growing for the past 10 years. However, we're also coming to a halt. There's only so much construction that you can do that a city can absorb in Phoenix, for example. And so you have to get to a point where you have to go somewhere else. And all the economic workers that are coming through are not just construction workers. A lot of them are farm workers. And the farms are not in Arizona with our deserts.
Interesting. Well, this is a fantastic achievement on your part. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We hope to see you around very soon.